50, 57, 58, yeah. I actually went to Rutland Street School and I hated every day of school.
Where's Rutland Street School?
It's just up here, just the back of there of just off Shamrock Street here. That's where the school is. It's still there, yeah. But I hated every day of that school because the simple reason, because we were bet stupid and they were lay teachers. And I remember when I went to the school, like my first introduction to the school was being brought there with my mother and father, and I can remember it vividly. And I've written about it. I remember the first day going to school, walking through the streets with my mother and father, going to that school. I remember walking up Rutland Street School and I seen the kids run, and I seen this massive, big red brick building, right? And I was brought up the steps of it, and I always remember there was other people queuing on the steps with their kids standing there. And I remember this grey-headed woman coming out, and she would call away the parents, and the child would disappear around the corner, you know. And after a while I'd hear a merciful scream, right? And I'd see the parents, mother and father, rushing around the corner, but not with their child, just on their own, heading out. So basically what was happening was the kid was getting his introduction into the class, and the mother and father were leaving him, and of course the kids would be screaming. But I witnessed that for a while, and then eventually my turn came. This woman came then again around. She used to come. It was like putting the kids into the classrooms, different rooms they were going to be into. And I always remember that. I remember I felt so frightened. And she came around, and I was standing there with my mother and father. But she didn't bring us around the corner. She brought us over to the far side of the staircase where we were standing. And she opened the door and she brought me in. My mother and father and myself in. And I never forget it. When the door opened, all these kids were sitting silent in the corner. There wasn't a budge out, and they were just staring at me, like, you know, and I'm looking at them. And the teacher was sitting at a desk, and the old woman, I think she was the head teacher, was standing beside this beautiful rocking horse, right, which was near enough positioned behind the blackboard. But I'm looking at all the kids staring at me in the thing, like as if, Jesus, there's another victim. Well, I didn't know that, now I know. So this woman stood beside the rocking horse, the grey-headed woman, and she had a hand on the head of the rocking horse. She started rocking it like that, and she beckoned me over. So I always remember my father urging me to go across, and I went across, and she lifted me up onto the rocking horse. And it was, you know, because I always remember the rocking horse was a kind of a cream type of paint on it, like enamel paint on it. Beautiful studded saddle on it, with things which you could put your feet into. Reins, the whole lot. And I was sitting on it, and she was rocking it. And I'm sitting on it. I'm looking back at my mother and father, see where he's still standing there. So I look back, and they were still standing there, and she's rocking me, and she's laughing at me the whole lot. And I look back again, my mother and father had disappeared out the door. Right. That was my introduction into the classroom. I let out a scream. Well, I'm telling you now, that woman grabbed me off the rocking horse and lashed me onto the floor. And I was screaming to run out after my mother and father. She grabbed me and pulled me by the jumper and pushed me into a desk. That's where I stayed. That was my introduction into that school, and I hated it from day one. Well, like through the thing, I remember the school was like one of the things we were given slates which we wrote with chalk on, like a slate. It was just like a board or something, but they were called slates, and you'd done your scribbling on them and things like that. You went through bits and pieces like that, and you went through the religious education of it, and you know, it would be like, you know, learning the ABCs and things like that, and going through things, most of the Irish, and that's where I read it, the Irish and the religion. I just could never hack. And you know, but I used to always remember when I hear the bell being rung on the staircase, time to go home. It was great. And coming out, my mother and father were starting to collect me. Or some of my brothers, my older brothers, might collect me, and that was it. Like, you know, then after years went on, you made your way home yourself. But like going through the babies and going into the different teachers and the whole lot. Some teachers were alright. Some of them were cowards. And literally lead you, you know, at the odd dig in the side of the head, you know, would be one of the punishments. Slap of the cane was another one. And I was shifted up into the masters, and I'll never forget it. This man, he was known as King Kong, and the name stood to him because he was over 6'6", He was built like a tank. He had this big, enormous head. And I remember being brought into the class and the whole lot. It was all our first time in the class, and I was with a friend of mine, right? And me and him were positioned together. It was two to a desk. And he stood up in the class. We stood that. We were all sitting down like that, and we were all, literally, I can tell you now, we were all shaking, like, you know. Now we'd seen him as we went through the school, but never dreaming we were going to get him. But we got him. He had big bulging eyes, right? His head was, I don't know, his head was a queer shape. But he just said, you know, we were all sitting down. It was kind of the introduction. He says, yeah, he says, I just want to lay down the rules. I take no messing in my classroom. Jesus, I remember saying to myself, I'm not going to be messing anyway. So anyway, the introduction was over and the whole lot, and we were all blah blah blah. So he got up. I remember the instance. It wasn't long after he gave the introduction. He turned around to do some stuff on the board, on the what you call it, the board that he wrote the thing on. And a fellow I was sitting beside, right, a fellow who lived in the one hall in corporation buildings. He took out a pea shooter and he put a piece of barley in his mouth and he cut him. The back of the neck he cut him. Well, boy Jesus, I tell you one thing, he dropped the chalk and he turned around and I was white. I mean the rest were the same, but I was just, and he said, stand up, the boy that done that to me. Of course, no one was standing up. So we charged down the road, and at that point I think there was about 40 or 50 in the classroom, because they were massive big classes they were. And he charged down the rows of desk, and of course, he heads down the front row, and we're down halfway near to the end. And he passed by my desk, and the mate of mine that hit him with the pea shooter, put the pea shooter between the two of us like that. And he flew by, and I turned around. And when I turned around, didn't the pea shooter fall out onto the floor? Yeah. Right? And he looked, and I went, shit, you know. And he came down, and he took me up, lifted me up out of the sea, and he carried me up. Scruff of the neck, and he had me up. I was like a rag doll. Yeah, I was like a rag doll. He held me up high like that. And my legs were dangling and I was screaming, right? And he put me down, and he was going all, the complexion was changing all colours. So he was looking for the cane on the desk, and then he found it, right? Boy Jesus, he leathered me, right? And he still wasn't satisfied. He forced me down along the rows of the desk. Now this is the top of Rutland Street School, you better believe this. He pushed me down along the rows of the desk, and he brought me right up to the back window, which overlooks into another part of the back entrance of Rutland Street. Sorry, the side entrance of Rutland Street. And he lifted up the window. Now I'm telling you, what I'm about to tell you next did exactly happen, and there's people witness to this that'll tell you. He jockeyed me up onto the window, and he stuck me out the window and held me by the legs. I was looking down, must be about 100 feet up or more. And I was screaming. I was absolutely screaming.